Okay, welcome to part one of part two. This is the second comedy list. There's 80 movies on this list, so I'm going to do the first 40, and then I'm going to go back and do the second 40 of my other list, and come back and then finish off this list. This is the list that I feel that a little bit more attention is paid to the story, and sometimes that can leave room for less than comedic scenes. Uh, so yeah, um, I would say that there's some movies on this list that you know if the Academy Awards was more open to actual comedies, um, these would be some of the movies that would be on there as far as like actually really good movies, like some great stuff, but also just super hilarious. So starting off with number 80, we got Dirty Work. Um, I saw this for the first time a few years ago, and it's really funny. There's some spots that are not always spot on hilarious, but overall, there's a lot of good jokes in there. Bad Santa. I never seen the sequel. I think because I didn't like the first Bad Santa enough to see the sequel. The funny thing is I like the first Bad Santa. It's funny, but for some reason I don't know, it just doesn't totally do it for me. Here's a surprise: The House. A lot of Will Ferrell movies I don't care for, um, and I know The House came out and it was panned big time, but I watched it and I thought it was rather pretty good. Um, 77 Big Trouble. This it's a better book than a movie because the comedy, the movie just cannot properly do it the way the book is written. So I would definitely suggest reading the book Big Trouble. But the movie is good. There's a lot of good stuff in the movies. Some an amazing cast, but a lot of really good scenes. Old School. Um, yeah, this is good. I think it's not quite as funny as it could be, or also it could be much higher on this list. I think it's just kind of like it's just a good movie with a lot of comedic moments, but just not that it's not that many. Role models. It's very similar to Old School. I think there's some parts of role models that they could have done that could have been directed differently, could have been set up and paid off better, and there's some moments that just kind of that you could have taken out and filled those moments in with better material from the main actors. But overall, it's funny. I mean, every movie in this list I find to be rather funny, and I watch somewhat often. Um, so being 75 is no slouch. The Farrelly Brothers Three Stooges movie. I know this one gets a lot of negativity out there, but it's very funny. I mean, if you like the Three Stooges, I don't know why you wouldn't like this movie. And the actors do an incredible job. Yeah, they're very good in it. So yeah, it's not great on story, but neither were the Three Stooges shorts. Um, the two Brady Bunch movies. Um, these movies have some insane humor, a lot of sexual humor, and it is so hilarious just listening to the way these characters are talking. And I thought it was really interesting the way they set the movie in the 90s rather than the 60s and 70s. So if you've not seen this, or you think it might be just a little goofy or something like that, there's a lot of comedy in there. Jay and Silent Bob Struck Back. I remember really liking this when it came out, but I've just not had much attention to rewatch it. So I mean, yeah, I've seen it a couple times, but for some reason. I'll need to watch it again soon. Idiocracy. Um, yeah, this one. This is the movie that nowadays a lot of people are saying, well, just when you thought this movie was, impossible, boy, it's really predicting the future. And yeah. I mean, just a lot of goofy, fun stuff in that one. Office Christmas Party. Um, I thought it was good. I thought it was funny. Um, yeah, I would say give it a chance, especially if you like any of the actors in it. There's nothing bad about it. There's nothing great about it, but it's good. Your Highness, very similar to a lot of the movies like in this section. Um, I, you would think with the cast and everything, you think, oh, this could be, it came out not too long after Pineapple Express, which might be on this list somewhere, but it just fell short. And I don't know if it's I think it might have to do with something with the setting of it. I, I don't know, but I did like it better the second time. But the first time, I think I gave up halfway through, and I just wasn't feeling it. But I did like it better the second time. So the internship, you know, this one definitely negative reviews when it came out. There's this unrated version, so I decided to watch it for the first time on the unrated Blu-ray, and I found it to be very, very good, really funny. The unrated bits, it, you knew that there was a definite difference between the unrated version and the PG-13 version. They should have just led with the R-rated, well, unrated. It would have been R-rated. They should have led with the R-rated version in theaters. And they should have played into that a little bit more. But still, it's really good. Game night, um, yeah, just a lot of fun. I think that's such a simple setup. Having a game night that goes bad, but there's just a lot of great little things in there. Starsky and Hutch. It's been a while since I've seen this. I remember Vince Vaughn being a really interesting and great villain with some hilarious lines. Obviously, I think the standout scene is when Ben Stiller accidentally does some cocaine, and they have these two women over. That's some comedy gold. But I remember the movie being very funny. Snoop Dogg pops up in there. There's some good action in there too. I forget if it's like I forget how funny it is, but I do know that I did laugh a lot. Here is another Broken Lizard movie. All the other Broken Lizard movies are on the other list. But this one is on this list because it did focus on the story. It was heavily involved with the story, and I think Broken Lizard does best when they just say, let's go with a comedy. The story will be there, but let's just go with a comedy because that's what they're really good at. Um, but Total Cruise was really good, especially for being like a college movie. I think they made it fairly close after being in college, if not in college. But it takes place on a college campus, and it's a really good movie. I don't. It's not as funny as their other movies, but it's rather good. Half Baked. Um, yeah, I've always liked this. I think there's some. I think the ending is not believable enough. I don't think that he would give up marijuana that easily. Yeah, he was having a little bit of an issue there at the end, but it almost makes you feel like that it's after the end of the movie, it cannot go good because what's he going to do? Stop being around his friends, or eventually break up with her? Because surely he's going to go back to marijuana. So I thought the ending was a little. It didn't belong. Back to School, of course, Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, just seeing him stand is hilarious. But yes, just a really hilarious classic storyline. You know, older guy going back to school, and obviously being out of place, but he becomes the big hit of the school. Yeah, yeah, really good. Both Fletch movies. Uh, Once again, pretty much anything Chevy Chase is in, I will watch, and there's a lot of stuff of his I need to see. Um, there's movies like Cops and Robertsons, which is not on either list. It came close to being on one of these lists, but it's not a. I should have put it on this list. Cops and Robertsons is really good. Man of the House is. I'm thinking some of his random movies that people might not have even seen or maybe even heard of, but Man of the House is good. Um, these are kind of more family comedies, but Fletch I think is just classic. It has that repeating song, kind of like Beverly Hills Cop. It has some great Chevy Chase dry humor throughout, just and a really good storyline. The Meet the Parents movies, I've not even seen all of them. I've not seen Little Fockers, but the first two are really good movies. They do go fairly heavy on the storyline, and there's not a huge amount of comedy throughout them, but there is a lot of really great comedic moments. Both Problem Child movies, I like Problem Child 2 better than 1, but just a little bit. But the I don't know if you see. It's kind of childish humor, but I mean, it is a little devil child. So what do you expect? But I've always really just enjoyed these movies. I like the cast that they put together. I can't for the life of me think of her name. Amy. Anyway, I love how she plays, and I didn't know it until years later because she does a really good job. But how she plays John Ritter's wife in the first movie, and then she plays a totally different character in the second movie. But I've always kind of liked these movies. Tropic Thunder, not as great as I think people make it out to be. I think there's some the flow to it. It seems like it almost seems like there's two movies put together and they didn't have enough story for one, so they tacked on an additional story to the other. But I mean, overall, it's really good. I just don't watch it as much as others. Burn After Reading. Uh, I think both Coens did this, but super smart. It comes off as a political thriller, and there's definitely some thriller aspects in it. There's a couple of dark but hilarious moments in it, but it is extremely funny. Like I randomly found this at a Goodwill the other day on Blu-ray, got it, and it was just I just thought it was hysterical. Hall Pass, unbelievably underrated. I mean, you have the Farrelly brothers, you have Owen Wilson, Jason Sudeikis, countless others in a stacked cast. Some absolutely top-notch, hilarious parts. I I think the scene where they're walking around at their quasi friend's new mansion, and they're walking around, they're by themselves, and all the other couples are off exploring the house, doing a tour of the house, and they're walking around making just comments left and right about the other people, and the other people are watching on the cameras in the house, and I mean, that is one of the top scenes of all time as far as comedy goes. But there's a lot of great comedy in this. Just some great stuff. Stephen Merchant pops up. He has some great scenes. Yeah, it's really good. Super bad. I wish it was more funnier. I mean, I love Hall Pass. So obviously, like so many movies, when you see 56, I think a lot of people will be like, "Oh, Super Bad's one of the greats." Yeah, it is, but I think that I just think that it didn't know quite how to be funny throughout. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, the laughs are not as many laughs as in another Jonah Hill movie, which is The Sitter here at 55. Another movie that was hated when it came out. Uh, I don't know why. It's really funny. Um, just yeah, watch it. I mean, I shan't say no more because it's good. Coming to America. It's been a long time since I've seen this. It's a really good movie. Um, what else can I say? It has Eddie Murphy in it. The other guys. Here, this is another one that it's very funny. Um, there's of course it's top to bottom a really good film. I think it focuses a bit too much on the story and kind of gets caught up in that a little bit, and then to the point where I have a hard time remembering what the story is for some reason. I've seen it like two or three times, but yeah, it's really good. Get Smart. I think this kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people. I mean, great stuff. I think maybe people were didn't because this is like one of those movies. There's like a string of Steve Carell movies that came out after he left The Office. I think. I think this is one of them, and it was just kind of one that kind of got caught up with others. Date Night was another one. That could have probably been on this list as well, because Date Night's funny. But yeah, I think I don't know what it was, but it does not get the attention that it deserves. Here's another one. I think a lot of people can just write this one off because they're like, oh, it's Dane Cook, and he's been in some really really fine movies. But I love this movie. Insanely quotable, a really good cast. You have Harlan Williams in there. Uh, I think Dane Cook's really good. I think he plays a. I mean, when you have Jessica Simpson and Dane Cook in real life, you're like, well, those two probably wouldn't match up. But the movie really makes it very realistic. The way she acts, the way he's so charismatic and everything. It's believable, and it's hilarious. Happy Gilmore. Um, yeah, I think Happy Gilmore is probably his one of his better comedies overall. Um, it's right up there with Billy Madison and Little Nicky as far as this period, as far as like his like PG-13 kind of comedy phase in the mid '90s, early 2000s. But yeah, this one, is a classic. Paul. Some movies are just weird. Like you have Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. They're hot right around the time the Cornetto trilogy's out. They're very in. You have Seth Rogen doing the voice of the alien. Lots of other character actors. You got Bill Hader in there, Jason Bateman. But I think it's a touch light on comedy, but the comedy that is there is really good, and it's a fun story. Extract. Oh, this is great. There, yeah. I mean, you when you have Mike Judge doing something, some of his stuff can go under the radar like this, and then of course some of the stuff he's very famous for, like the Beavis and Butthead and Office Space and stuff. So I I think this is Extract is one of my favorite things of his. Yeah, it's great. Trading Places, yeah, a lot of fun. I really like the way the movies. I think a lot of people can watch the movie and say, "Oh, it feels so racist at some of the stuff that happens," but they don't see how it reverses all that, and it does so in a smart way. Yeah, very, very good. The Friday trilogy. If I were to rank the Friday trilogy, it would go two, one, then three. I really like the second one. I, I forget his name, but the Mexican neighbor and his dog, some of the best stuff in the entire trilogy. But overall, really good, solid trilogy. All three movies, really, really good stuff. 9 to 5. Um, this was a movie that I always saw as a kid. It was one of my mom's favorites, so I happened to always catch it. But just solid stuff. I mean, just really funny stuff, and I bet it would be a lot. It wouldn't be a movie that a lot of people would check out. I think a lot of guys would be like, "Oh, these three women in some old '80s movie." Mm, give it a chance. It's great. Both Bean movies, Bean and Bean's Holiday, are very good. They're not like amazing movies, but they do tell some good character stories within them. I and plus they're hilarious. I mean, I don't know which one is better. The first one might be a little bit more nostalgic for me, whereas the second one has some really smart things going on. Hey, Ted's in a duffel bag. I wonder how many people know of this movie, starring the hilarious Joe Pesci, um, and the great Christy Swanson is in there too. Um, this is it's a gangster movie, but it knows that it's a comedy, and it leans on the comedy aspects super hard. The it almost goes a little bit overboard in some of the scenes, especially with the way the mom reacts to seeing the heads on multiple occasions. There's lots of goofy running around and acting and stuff, but I like it. It gives this movie a real feel to it that that is super easy to watch. It's like a quick 90 minutes, and it's very funny. Saving Silverman, one of my favorites that no one really talks about. It's just a couple years after American Pie, so you got Jason Biggs in there, of course Jack Black. I guess you could say at the height of his career. Amanda Peet, uh, a very very funny movie. I mean, what can I say? It's and plus there's a nice little storyline there going on. So yeah, great. And Screwed, the final movie on this first 40. Screwed is I don't know how people have not really seen this or heard of it. I mean, Dave Chappelle, Danny DeVito, Norm Macdonald. Those three actors, they have a widespread appeal to lots of different people out there, and you would think that fans of either one of those three would want to see other stuff that they're in. I remember when poor Norm Macdonald died, I said, I finally need to watch Dirty Work, and I liked it, and I remember telling myself, I liked Norm Macdonald a lot in Screwed. Why didn't I ever watch Dirty Work? Um, so I'm always trying to watch other stuff, and I need to do a better job. Like I said before, especially with some of the John Candy and Steve Martin movies, lots of stuff in the '80s and '90s that my parents or anyone I was around happened to not watch, and so I didn't watch because usually growing up I watched either stuff that they had on VHS tape laying around, or mostly newer things, and so yeah, so lots of stuff has just kind of slipped by. Um, but there's three great reasons to watch Screwed. Plus, it's hilarious. So I will come back and do the 30 through one of my joke-based comedies, and then we'll do, of course, do 40 through one on the fourth video in this series. with the rest of this list. But let me know in the comments below what you think about these movies. If you're just flabbergasted at why some of these may not be any higher than the top 40. Let me know if I'm missing any. I know I mentioned missing Date Night, and there's a couple of others I missed, but yeah, I'll see you on the next one.